Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa II, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman on the Pin Down over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. You should be taking in all sorts of Pistons content creation, including from my guy, Harry. He says, what up, though? He contributes over at the Motor City Hoops Substack, as well as his podcast, The Order of the Blazing Horse. Definitely reading Omari Sankofa II and all the Pistons coverage on the Detroit Free Press. We appreciate all the support, the likes, the comments, the shares, all of that stuff. 0-2, we're back. We weren't sure if we were going to be recording tonight. We had decided that if Detroit did not win Game 5, we were just going to wait till the weekend and then cover the series and start moving into the offseason. And Detroit went into Madison Square Garden on Tuesday night, Game 5, elimination game, and played really well. We will get into who, what, why, all of that. But we've done a lot of vibe checks, 0-2. Where are the vibes at right now for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the vibes obviously are good after you stave off elimination. But I would say the mood going into that game did feel a little bit different compared to games 1 and 4, where initially there's just the excitement of the playoffs, and then it's 1-1, and then the Knicks get a couple, and obviously there's frustration after the way Game 4 ended. So going into Game 5, it's kind of like a seriousness, just from the team and just in the air in general of this could be it. And JB before the game said it's just one more game. They didn't make a big deal out of it. But after winning that game, I think there's relief, but you still got to go and do it again. And then obviously again as well. So backs against the wall, but it seems like this team kind of likes that. It seems like they perform better when there are no expectations or an expectation that they won't succeed. So we'll see if they can bring that back home. But they like playing in New York. They like being booed. Like, they seem to survive and thrive in that atmosphere. So that's probably been the one constant for them. Like, this season is you get 4 at MSG. That's big time for them, especially to get 2 in this series.
Yeah, I don't know that I've been right about much coming into the series, but I did kind of highlight, and we both talked about this team's ability on the road. And I know Wes looked it up, and they actually had the same record at home and away this season, but I would assume most teams have a better home record than a road record, and this team had the exact same record, both above 500, and I think that really speaks to how good they were on the road. And listen, right now they're beating New York in New York, right? They're 2 out of 3 in Madison Square Garden. They're just unfortunately 0-2 at LCA, and obviously have a chance to change that and make this thing real interesting on Thursday night, which will be a lot of fun. Let's dive right into the game, though, Omari. I think I know who I would want to talk about initially, but what individual player would you like to start with? Who gave you the biggest takeaway from Game 5?
It's probably the same as you, Asar Thompson.
There you go.
22 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals. Badger Jalen Brunson into 16 points on 4 of 16 shooting. The defensive piece, I think, has been there since Game 1, but he combined that with them, I think, as a team. It wasn't just Asar. I think Duran and, Cade get credit for getting Asar involved as well. But key piece for him in that game was just finding a way to consistently get into the paint to score and mitigate the spacing concerns that I think scared them off a bit for him closing games. So they stopped doing the championship belt in the playoffs because, it's a team thing now. But if you have to give a belt out, I think what Asar did on both ends stands out the most in that game for sure.
It was really impressive. We had gone on here, we had talked about it, and what the minute stuff was a huge topic of conversation. I want to lead off with that for me, Omari. I think JB did an incredible job with Asar's minutes in that game. And I thought he did as good as you can do in terms of matching Asar's minutes with Jalen Brunson's minutes. Asar Thompson isn't going to play 40 minutes. I don't know if he did it his rookie year, but I know he didn't do it this season because I looked it up the other day. He only had 6 games in the regular season this year where he played 30-plus minutes, and I don't know how many of those, got close to 40 or not. So he's not going to do that. But Asar Thompson should be playing 30 minutes a night. And I thought what JB did was obviously he started halves and then he would sub Asar out, knowing he had to survive a few minutes with Brunson still on the court. And then he would just keep Asar on the bench in the second and fourth quarters. And I know this made Pistons fans a little antsy, but he just kept him on the bench. And then as soon as Brunson got up in those quarters, Asar followed him right to the scorer's table and checked in with him. The reason I like that O2 is why waste a potential Asar foul with Jalen Brunson not on the floor or any sort of energy whatsoever when his sole purpose on the defensive end should be shutting Jalen Brunson down as much as possible, right? Like obviously Brunson still had a good series, but I really thought that was very strategic and smart from JB Bickerstaff and his staff.
For sure. Bigger staff and his staff.
I know I've said it a few times. I'm like, I got to figure out a better way to say this, but I
There's
feel
no
bad
way around it though.
I know. And I feel bad just calling him JB. I've never met the man in person. It's not like we're friends or something like that. So I know I do.
I think he's probably cool if him calling you.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. Ask him tomorrow at the press conference. It's not like it's a big game or anything. So
yeah, no, that's like my first question tomorrow for sure. No, but yeah, I think Asar, like you mentioned, like it's almost like you have a handicap of like 2 fouls when you're up against Brunson, just because in spite of your best efforts, like there's still going to be a couple, and I'm saying this in like quotes for our listeners, ticky like 50-50 calls that go against you. And I just think despite your best efforts, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 of those. And then he also just has a lot of genuine tactics to, draw fouls too. It's not like it's all just him slipping and sliding. Like, there's going to be plays where he gets legitimate contact as well. So that's kind of built into it. But with that, I mean, Asar did as good of a job as you could hope for. Like, you think about just right off the bat, he had that possession where he just completely eliminated whatever shot Brunson was trying to generate. Brunson almost airballed the shot he did get out, and then Tobias gets a 3 on the other end, and it's up 9-2. But that just shows like how he can spark both ends of the floor, which obviously we know. Even if he's not generating a direct turnover, just some of the bad shots he generates could get the Pistons going on the other end. And and I thought they did a good job of not risking him picking up fouls, defending someone else. Like, he is your only option against Jalen Brunson, and it is imperative that he is on the floor for every moment that Jalen Brunson is out there. Like, Brunson even had that crazy 3 where he just, like, Schroeder gave him no space at all, and he just kind of flung it up and got it. Like Thompson's the only guy on the team who it seems like can really stand a chance, because you put somebody too small on him, Brunson will figure it out, and somebody who's not as mobile as Thompson, like, he's going to foul out if he can do it.
Yeah, I looked up Asar's career. He's played 1 game. He had 1 game, must have been his rookie year. He played 43 minutes. He's had 25 games where he's played between 30 and 39. And if you just average the total minutes of those 25 games, it's 33. So it's on the lower end of 30. And so I just think 30 is probably the max. Maybe if you really want to push it in game 6, maybe it's 32 or 33. And so, again, I just thought it was really smart. I'm kind of holding off on the offensive stuff because it's going to be a bigger picture idea, at least for me. Shameless plug here. I did a video breakdown today of the Pistons offense from this game 5 over on the Substack. If you guys want to go check it out, it's a little bit longer, but I showed a lot of how the Pistons are attacking the Knicks in the half court. And I kind of want to save that for the second portion of this podcast. Guys, we're only going to go about 30 minutes. So if you have a question or something like that, throw it in the chat. I see some names coming up and we will get to those. And I want to go to the next one with all due respect to Cade Cunningham. Like, I feel like this is such a Cade friendly podcast and we always end up going 30 minutes before we discuss the most important player. But Marco Rolo says, Tobias. Oh, too, I thought Tobias was really good yesterday. And I don't even know that I'm giving him enough credit because he's taking the second toughest matchup in the series all series long. And I thought he had a pretty good offensive game as well. So shout out to Tobias for a really good performance in game 5.
Yeah, I mean, so much of the physicality the Pistons have had to replace with Stu being out, I think has been generated by Tobias, and just how he's really given everything he's had to make life as difficult for Cat as he possibly can. But he had like 4 blocks. Like, he's had multiple games.
I think he had 6 stocks. Yes, I think it's 6 stocks yesterday.
Like, his defensive playmaking has just been insane this series. Like, he's been arguably their best 2-way player when you take into account both sides of the ball. You just given how much responsibility he's had on defense, essentially giving up 3 inches and probably 25, 30 pounds defending Cat. Yeah, I mean, 4 blocks is insane. I think just the extent that he's been dialed in. He's had a really, really tough job out there, essentially just being the number 2 on both ends. And like he's done it, I think, as well as you could reasonably hope for.
Wes says that he believes his 4 blocks were a playoff career high as well. And Chuck, you bring up an important conversation here. Asar was logging about 35 minutes a game last spring. I think he'll be able to handle 35 again next year with an offseason to get his full. I agree, Chuck. Like, I don't think that Asar is never going to be able to play in the mid-30s. Foul trouble, and he plays so hard that maybe stamina or something like that comes into play. I'm just saying for like right now, like obviously this is the conversation right now with him in terms of how many minutes he can go. Let's talk about Jalen Durham. Rishai, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Seems there's enough data now, regular and playoffs, to prove that we are a better team when Asar and Durham on the floor together, offensively and defensively, and he puts no with a question mark. Again, I want to dive into the offensive aspect of that after the break, but just thoughts on Jalen Durham kind of here in general in this series. The offensive numbers definitely aren't like gaudy in any way, Omari. He's averaging a double-double, though, including 5 offensive rebounds. He's had some foul trouble issues of his own. I thought his passing was incredible in Game 5, and his defense continues to be okay. Like, he gave up a 3 that was crazy deep, but I still thought he should have been there for the moment. What have been your thoughts on Durham so far?
Yeah, like, Durham just does so much stuff that, like, no one else on the roster can really do. Like, I think he played all 12 minutes in Game 4 in the fourth quarter, and a lot of that is just because, like, he single-handedly carries the rebounding for this team a lot, especially going up against a team that not only has Karl Anthony Towns, but Mitchell Robinson, 2 guys who can really provide a lot of physicality. And Robinson's just one of those athletes where people just kind of bounce off of him, like, except Durham. Like, Durham's probably one of the few guys in the league who can actually kind of, like, match his size and just, like, pure strength. But, yeah, like you mentioned, 7 offensive rebounds. I think 2 of those were, like, late, like, just cleaning up. Like, I know Cat blocked a shot from Cade, and, like, Durham grabbed it and put it back up. Like, he had an offensive board. Then he ended up kind of finding Durham. I mean, he found Tobias Harris with, like, that backwards bounce pass that led to a layup. No one else can really impact the glass like he can. But then you also mentioned the playmaking. He had 6 assists, 1 turnover. And I know you wanted to talk about, and we're going to get to the second half soon, but like specifically the short road stuff where, the defense is collapsing on Cade, and then, he's finding a star or he's finding a shooter or whatever. I thought was really the key to making Asar work. Like, really, Durham, I thought, was the linchpin and kind of keeping everything going. And his playmaking also was a big reason why, I think JB felt better about leaving Schroeder on the bench for a lot of the fourth quarter, because your center is, attacking the Knicks over and over in the short row. So I thought he had a phenomenal game overall. We could talk about the defense, but everything he does offensively is stuff that this team just wouldn't have if he wasn't out there, and that's been huge.
Sports Time says, I saw a post where the defensive rating for the starting lineup, I believe for the playoffs only, was 84.6. That's crazy. So I pulled up NBA.com, advanced numbers, 5-player lineups, playoffs only, 5 games, 71 minutes. Cade, Tim Hardaway Jr., Asar, Tobias, Jalen Durham. Guys, it's not just the 84.6 defensive rating. The offensive rating is 118.
Yeah.
The net is 33.4. Now, I've come on this podcast and said, like, hey, net rating, defensive rating, plus minus, all of that isn't the end-all be-all. But, I mean, that is an interesting number there for the starting lineup in a series where it's kind of funny because the Knicks bench hasn't really given them that much either. So it is kind of an interesting number that the net rating for that starting lineup in 71 minutes is so good for the Detroit Pistons. And yeah, I mean, I think we know Asar kind of drives the defensive end, and we'll talk about Cade because I think that's important for him as well. Let's actually do that. Let's go to a short break. When we come back, let's dive into Cade Cunningham, and then we can go wherever from there in terms of other players. But also I want to talk about something offensively in particular.
All right, we're back with segment 2 Let's talk about Cade because I thought that was a unique game. First half, like he really couldn't get anything going at all. That was probably his worst first half of the playoffs. I think he had 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 fouls. And, Sar and Tobias really carried a lot of the offense early. Then in the third quarter, he gets going a little bit. I think he was like 6 of 7 at the line. And then fourth quarter, obviously 13 points. Like he really kind of took over and, was a big reason why they held on. Just what was your overall impression of Cade's game? And outside of the field goal percentage, like that game really, I thought, just kind of showed how he has a knack for making plays and when the team needs him to.
Michael says, I don't want to be critical, but Cade has been the best two-way player. I assume when he's saying critical, I think he's when we were talking about Asar Thompson. Michael, if I'm not portraying your thought there correctly, let us know.
Or Tobias, I said,
oh,
Tobias
okay.
has been like accounting for the difficulty of his matchup, but Cade's been great defensively too, obviously.
With a lot of stocks as well, which we've broken down. And here's the other thing. How about the defensive rebound totals? Wes dropped this in the chat. Cade actually leads this team in the playoffs in defensive rebounds with 37, Tobias 34, Duren 33, where Duren obviously makes the impact in total rebounds per game is what he does on the offensive end compared to Cade and Tobias. Omari, he's averaging 25, 8-6, 8-8, 3 stocks. The biggest thing is the turnovers. He's just under 6. So we know that's an area that he's still got to grow. He's over 80% from the free throw line now and getting there over 7 times a game. So that's incredible right there. Like a lot of this stuff is so good. And my thing is he isn't shooting the percentage that maybe you would want. He's at 43% from the field, 25% from 3, and he's still putting up 25.5 points a game without a true number 2. I mean, I thought it was funny today. Somebody talked about like the revolving door of the number 2 option with each game in this series. And it's kind of true. You want to guess how many guys are averaging double digits for the Pistons in the playoffs?
I would guess no more than 3.
7, but it's close.
Really?
So here's the thing, though.
So it's been that stretched out. Okay.
But here's the thing. Jalen Duren is right at 10. Asar is at 10.4, and that only came from the 22-point game in Game 5. Malik is at 12.8. Tim Hardaway Jr. is at 13, and Schroeder's at 13.2. So 5 of those 7 are between 10 and 13.2. It's just kind of funny. Like I looked up the Magic the other day, and they have Paolo and Franz both over 25 or whatever. And then I think Wendell Carter Jr. like barely was cracking double digits or something like that. So like they had,
that makes okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. I'm just comparing. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying the Magic are in a better situation than the Pistons because of that. It's just every game it seems like it's been somebody different. And you know what's scary for the Knicks? If I'm the Knicks, you know what I'm nervous about? We haven't had a Malik Beasley game. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley are both at 30 and 33% respectively from 3. And so there's a chance that you get an explosion from one of those two guys as well. So it's just, I think it's really impressive that Cade does it without that true number 2 guy right now, with all due respect to what Tobias has done, to what Asar did in Game 5 as a play finisher, what Schroeder has done making big shots. It's just, it truly is impressive when you account what he's done on the defensive end as well.
You also have to take into account that like team wide, like this series has been so physical that like neither of these teams are like shooting especially well.
Sure.
I think like in Game 4, I don't think either team shot above 40%. Like I think the Pistons won that game and they shot maybe like, or whoever won that game, I think they shot like 37%. Like so Cade's 43, I think in that context is like not as like it's like 2004 like 43%. Like you're working hard for that 43%. It's not like he's getting the type of shots he would generate if you have somebody else with the gravity of like you look at like Dame and Giannis or whatever. Like that's not a situation they have here in Detroit. So he also hasn't taken a lot of threes, and he's kind of made up for that, like you said, with the way he's been able to get to the line. So it just speaks to the problem solving. Like it speaks to the playmaking. Like Cade's been able to beat you in multiple ways, whether it's just him scoring the ball himself or allowing the offense to kind of flow through the shooters or through, Duren's passing a little bit more, or like in the third quarter in Game 4, like just him kind of taking over defensively on, like leading both ends. This is a comparison you don't hear as much, but I think there's a little bit of Jimmy Butler in Cade. Not just how he rises to the moment, but just how he can just make plays in a variety of ways to do that.
Yeah, he's been incredible. I've been really impressed, and I'll be honest. Like the first half of Game 1, I was a little nervous because it looked like OG was really locked in, and I mean, I think OG has been locked in, and he's been physical, and you can see that OG has been very keen on certain scouting report things, and Cade has figured that out just a little bit and still find ways to be successful, which is really cool to see. Before we get to like team-wide stuff, we did have a comment about, Ben said Holland has looked like a deer lost in the headlights, getting good experience though. I would agree. I think the last two have been pretty rough for Ron Holland. I think in game 3, I had done a breakdown where I was like, man, this isn't bad. And then in games 4 and games 5, the process just has not been good at all, Omari. And so I want to ask you this. I'm the data collection guy, right? I want to see these guys play. I want to be able to collect data. Based off what we've seen from Ron Holland, we've got a little bit of time from him, but they are game 6 at LCA, backs against the wall again. The last 2 rotations from Holland haven't been good. We've seen JB not go to him in the second half. Do you think we see Ron Holland in game 6?
I would be curious because he only played 5 minutes, just like a tick under 5 minutes, I think, last night. I am curious to see if they eventually give Fontecchio a look, just because, I mean, we know what he can do, right? We know he can give you some size and some execution defensively. We know he can knock down shots. He didn't have the best regular season, but I think once you get down to like playing a guy 5 minutes, like that's kind of when you have to probably consider, the possibility or at least the idea of giving somebody else a shot. We all know what Ron can do. I think the idea of what he can bring is still really necessary for this team, especially in the series. That's been a lot of physicality and, just making those kind of 50-50 plays and extra effort plays. But, it's moved a little fast for him, especially defensively. Like he picked up a couple, bad fouls. He had one on Brunson where he just closed out too aggressively after he got the inbounds pass. And, with it being an elimination game, like you got to wonder how much of that they can really tolerate if he comes out and he's looking a little shaky again. But there's also the possibility that you just shorten the rotation even more and you go down to 7 or 8 players if need be. So
that's where that's where Asar easily gets to 35 or 36 minutes, right? Is like you just take the 5 or 6 minute rotation that Ron Holland is getting and you give that to Asar and however you want to space it out. Keith says the Knicks really haven't allowed Cade to step into any threes. He got exactly one good look off a screen miscommunication last night, and Tibbs immediately called a timeout. I would agree in general. I think especially off the ball, I agree with that. OG, Bridges, those guys are so hooked up. Where I would push back a little bit is I think the way that the Knicks guard the Cade, Tim Hardaway Jr., whatever, when they bring Brunson into the ball screen and the way the Knicks guard that, I think there are 4 or 5 opportunities a game where Cade could get a walk into off the dribble 3-point attempt. If Hardaway Jr. or Beasley or whoever gets a good enough screen on Anunoby, and then when Cade clears Brunson, there's a half second, a second there. I think he took 3 of them in game 5. He missed 2. But he made the third one, which was around 4 minutes to go left in the game. Pistons were up 2, and it was a big make. The only reason I have this fresh on my mind, it was something I very specifically highlighted in that video breakdown that I was talking about over on the Substack. So I want to get into that then, O2, is the offense in general. And we saw Asar, I don't want to say unlocked, but I feel like unlocked in the series. I feel like he hasn't really been able to find his groove offensively in the series. We did see it in the regular season. And for me, I'll give you my pitch for what I think happened. I think they went back to traditional pick and rolls. I think they have hunted Jalen Brunson so much, but the problem with hunting Jalen Brunson is he's usually on Hardaway Jr., Beasley, somebody like that, and then Asar and Duren are both off the ball, and they like to occupy the same space off the ball. Well, when they run a traditional pick and roll, what's going to happen is the Knicks are going to put 2 on the ball. And Duren's going to catch in the short roll, which means now Asar can play down on that baseline in the dunker spot. And we saw multiple examples where Cade took 2, got it out to Duren caught, found Asar on the baseline, and Asar was able to finish. I would like to see the Pistons in game 6 lean into that even more, just more traditional ball screen actions for Cade.
Yeah, I wrote about it today a little bit, and last night. But like of Duran's 6 assists, 3 of those were just directly to Asar. Just him cutting baseline, getting to the dunker spot, and making himself available. Like as you mentioned, they're bringing two defenders up to the screen to defend Cade. Now you have two defenders beating Duran, because he's got the size advantage there, and then Asar just kind of slinks in there. And yeah, like Duran, I think really is the key to making Asar work. You can't have any scenarios where before you kind of mentioned Duran and Asar like to occupy the same space, so Asar kind of gets forced into the corner kind of awkwardly. With no direction, and then sometimes he ends up with the ball late in the shot clock, and he's trying to ISO 1-on-1 against Michael Bridges or somebody. But that's not how you want to utilize Asar. Like you want Asar moving in space, you want him moving into space, and you want to tap into his verticality because he's like the rare 6'6", 6'7" forward that can just kind of rise up above people, whether not even just lobs, but for rebounds, right? But yeah, like if you're going to have Duran and Asar on the floor together, like you essentially have to have Cade as your primary creator and then Duran as your secondary creator. And even beyond Asar, like Duran has some nice kickouts too. Like he kicked out to THJ for like a wing three, and then he kicked out to Dennis Schroeder, and Schroeder took a step in and knocked down the mid-range pull-up. So and then I mentioned that bounce pass he had to Bias on the cut as well. So if you can trust Duran to play make to that level, then I think that solves a lot of issues for you, right? Not just defensively, but making sure you have adequate rebounding on the floor as well.
YouTube user says Duran in the short roll was effective, but if Tibbs is smart, he'll fix that. It wouldn't have been difficult to take most of those cuts away with scheme. I will just say, like, if they're going to put two on Cade, then somebody's going to be open. Yeah. And if you're going to take away Asar's cut, which can be done, you're right, but then somebody's going to be open on the perimeter. And if you have Tobias and Tim Hardaway Jr., or if it's Beasley or whoever, those guys are theoretical guys that are going to knock down those shots. And as you mentioned, they did it one time where they rotated down to the baseline. They took all of that action away, and Duran actually made the really nice adjustment to hit Tim Hardaway Jr. on the wing, and he did knock that one down. So I agree that they can take away Asar. The other thing I highlighted in that breakdown was what they did was it ended up being Brunson was the guy playing 2-on-1 on the weak side, though. So even though you're not attacking Brunson in the initial ball screen action, like we've all talked about even before the series started, you're attacking Brunson as an off-the-ball defender. And you just mentioned it. What's Jalen Brunson going to do with Asar on the baseline? His only option is to foul him because he can't jump high enough to contest any sort of attempt. So I agree with you, YouTube user. I think Tibbs will have something to counter that, but I don't think it's super easy unless they're not going to put two on the ball. And then now you have Cade Cunningham just operating ball screens, attacking cat and drop, and those type of things. Chris says the smaller lineup seemed to give the Knicks some issues. Do you think there's any chance the Pistons use Sasser in some spot minutes against Brunson in a small ball lineup? Chris, appreciate the question. I would say no. We've seen how Schroeder's size struggles against Brunson. I think Sasser would be even bigger of an issue on the defensive end against Brunson specifically.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think any minutes I would go to Sasser would just go to Schroeder. Schroeder, like he's really stepped up for his team. Like nobody's really been able to check Brunson except AC, but everything Schroeder just gives you from a playmaking standpoint, just to being able to perform in the moment standpoint. Like he was a big reason why they were able to win game 2. I just think there's probably room for one small guard in this lineup, and that's going to be Schroeder for him.
YouTube user says, I'd rather give up THJ threes than Asar dunks if I'm New York. I don't disagree. All I'm saying is that's going to be a wide open catch and shoot three. He's shooting 33% right now, and you could probably scheme it up where it's Beasley getting it if Beasley gets hot or whatever. My only point is I like that Detroit went to the traditional ball screen actions as opposed to always the guard-to-guard stuff, bringing Brunson into the action. Okay, Jill Davenport coming in. Glad Asar was a scoring threat in Game 5. Yes, Jill.
Comments day.
Yes, let's go. Let's go. Wes, the news you dropped O2 and I today, is that okay for me? Yeah, Jill in the new crib with her and Wes. Shout out to the new house, to the lovely couple. And she breaks it in with a comment on the YouTube, on the Pistons Pulse Live. Thank you so much, Jill. And we agree. Yes, making an Asar a scoring threat was huge to unlock his overall game in the Pistons. That's a great comment. Love it.
Are you going to give them line advice, Bryce?
They're probably not going to ask because they probably have the same mentality as you.
I was hoping so. We could talk about this after the pod. I was just curious.
No, Wes and I will talk about it. Listen, whenever that person sent me the DM asking for advice, my whole day was made. Like I was in people could tell me I was the smartest person in the world in terms of basketball, or my video breakdowns are great or whatever. When somebody asked me for lawn advice, it was just like, it spoke right to my heart. And my love language is words of affirmation. And so whenever I got those, it really spoke directly to me. Keith brings up a great point. I hadn't thought of this. This is really good from Keith. I've highlighted it before, but I hadn't considered it in this series. I think some of Beasley's struggles have to do with not having Stewart. He's used to Stu being the screener and DHO guy. That Stu was a great screener for Malik Beasley. I'd also be interested to see how many minutes Malik and Duren have played together, because Duren's a really good DHO guy with him as well. And as much as Paul Reed has done for this team and he's performed admirably filling in for Stu, it's not always great, but he's giving great energy. He doesn't do those little nuanced things the way that Stu and Duren do. And just in general, they haven't been able to develop the chemistry that Beasley did with Stu and Duren throughout the entire season. That's a great call by Keith.
Yeah, that is. And that's just one of the other small things you don't consider when, you do consider everything Stu does for this team. But even despite not having Stu, and he's questionable again tomorrow, they are 3-2. Like they've, been right there with New York. It's like, I feel like some of the online chatter about the series is like, well, before last night was funny because there was a perception that the Knicks, I think, have played better in this series than they have. Like every single game's been razor thin, so there's going to be a classic in Game 6. I think, no matter which way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, even going into Game 5, it was so close. I mean, I had brought up the net rating and how close it was compared to all of these other series. I don't even know what the overall like plus minus is or whatever. Like how much each team's outscored the other team. Detroit just continues to do what they do. I think they have a couple different things they can spam at the Knicks in terms of bringing Brunson into the action, running traditional ball screens. I thought they played with a little bit better pace. Again, highlighted a lot now, but some of the stuff they got to was even after makes, you can still push pace. It's not true transition, but as opposed to just walking the ball up the floor, they push pace a little bit. I also thought, Omari, they had some incredible overall defensive possessions. Like just as a team, not just Asar, but everybody rotating, contesting, moving. I think they forced a couple shot clock violations. And I'm excited to watch this game on Thursday at LCA. I think it's going to be an awesome game. I think they'll be ready for it. I would assume the Knicks respond, specifically Cat, because the last time he didn't have a great game, he came back and had a really good one. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been great so far. I hope we get a Game 7. That was my prediction pre-series, and we're getting close to that. But any final thoughts before we let you go? Anybody in the chat as well, if you have a quick question, get it in now, because we are planning on cutting this one off at 30. We've already gone a little bit longer than that. But any final thoughts from you, O2?
No, I mean, just in general, just how impressive this team's been. Like the extent that they've been able to learn quickly, shake things off, and continually problem solve. Like, I feel like they're shedding the young team reputation in real time. And, that's been kind of cool to see. That you come in with all these, well, can they handle this, that, the other? And the answer is yes. Like, they've handled everything the Knicks have thrown at them so far. And, and I can't even imagine what the LCA is going to feel like. I'm just excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy environment. So everybody that's going, shout out you guys and enjoy it. Have fun with it. I do want to make a quick note. We are recording before Most Improved Player was announced on Wednesday night. So if Cade wins or doesn't win or whatever, we weren't avoiding the conversation. It hadn't been announced at the point of us cutting off the podcast. We will talk about that, the next time we record, whenever that ends up being. And eventually we'll get to talk about the one I'm excited about, which is when he makes All-NBA. I think that's the award that's really cool for him. And ultimately the award that matters to Cade Cunningham, because it puts a whole lot more money in his pocket. So interesting last little nugget here from Keith. The Pistons in their history have never come back from 3-1 to force a Game 7 on the road before. So tomorrow, okay, so this is real. So everybody, this is Keith Black-Trudeau, Pistons historian. double history, right? So that they could force a road game 7 after going down 3-1, and it would also break 8-game home losing streak in the playoffs. 9 straight losses.
Yeah, so I forget how many it is because I forget exactly. I know I believe they lost their last 2 in 2008. So in my mind, that would be 7 because you lost the 2 at home in 2009. You lost the 2 at home in 2016. You lost the 2 at home in 2019. So that's 6. And then I think they lost their last home game in 2008.
So that's 9 because then they've lost 2 this year.
And then they've lost 2 this year. So that's 9. Yep. Yeah, you're right. That's 9.
Yeah. So Keith says game 6, 2008. So,
that's right. Yeah.
And I think it's tied right now or something like that. Yeah. Tweet House says tied for the record. So this is the team to do all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like to break all of these trends, to do something. I realize it's first round of the playoffs, but like a little bit of history in regards to that. Too many, as Ben says. I agree. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. This team has been incredible to watch all year long, and I can say this now that they won Game 6. Since they won Game 5. Since Game 4 happened, as soon as it happened, my first thought was, I cannot wait to see how this team responds to going down 3-1, to getting screwed on the final call of the game, to all of that. Because all this team has done all year long is respond, and I had a hunch that they would go into Madison Square Garden and respond, and it's what they did. And so I'm fascinated to see what they do tomorrow as well, Omari.
No doubt. Super excited. Historic stuff happening in Detroit. And with that, I'll go ahead and close this out. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Dakota Avery Nichols, and big thanks to Wes Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all whenever next time is.